All right, William, introduce yourself, brother.
No worries. I do this intro before, and I swear I change it a little bit every single time. But I'm William Wayland. I'm a strength and conditioning consultant and coach based in Chelmsford and Essex in the UK. We've got a gym there, Powering Through Performance. But what I'm also known for more recently is my consultancy work with the PGA European Tour. I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. If you want to find me, I'm on Twitter at WSWayland and on Instagram at Powering Through, and that's all one word. And there's the website, which is powering-through.com.
There you have it. All right, now we know where to find you, what you do, who the hell you are. Right before this, we were talking about buying houses, and I was contemplating telling my friggin' lawsuit story about that, but I think I'm just gonna say fuck it and get right into training. I don't know. So I actually had a couple of questions. I'd made a post on Instagram regarding like what people wanted us to talk about.
Yep.
Did you have any decent questions on yours?
I got like 3 or 4 sort of pretty good ones, and a couple of stupid ones. So I don't know if you want to do the stupid ones or the more serious ones.
Let's do the stupid ones first.
the stupid one of the stupid ones was who has the best beard, which I knew someone was going to ask. So
I don't know.
Jihad over there.
No, dude. I have a shitty fucking beard. I have a shit. Dude, this shit. It's like all patchy and stuff. My brother's got a fabulous beard. The goods has a fabulous beard. But you two both have better beards than I do. I just fucking care less, so it's longer.
William's got more. You're clean.
Yeah,
it's
it's better in side profile. So but I don't know. I reach a point where it gets so long that I just end up shaving off that and doing jiu-jitsu. If you ever get your beard jammed in a choke, that's you tap to that and not the choke, because it feels like someone's it's like someone tearing your pubes out. It's not the most pleasant sensation having somebody tear your beard out of your face.
Yeah, whenever I get a little lippy with my mom, she fucking grabs onto my beard and yanks it. Oh, it hurts so fucking bad. That drives me. My uncle actually grabs my beard every now and then. I almost wind up and clock him. I won't do that to my mom, obviously. I'll hit my uncle though.
Just backhand your mum. What?
Oh yeah, that'll go over. Oh jeez. I won't wake up.
Destroy you, yeah.
So what were the other questions?
The other one was who would stay longer in a sauna, either me or you? And
not me, Brooker. Either you or Brooker, bro. I am a bitch. I am the worst in this. Brooker will stay in a sauna for an hour. He don't give a shit. You too. You guys are nuts.
I don't know. I've not had a sauna since lockdown happened, and that's like it's a conditioning effect, isn't it? The more you use it, the better at doing it you are. And
and it really depends what you've done beforehand. If you've trained hard and then you're going in, you're going to suffer. But if you've had a bit of cold or something like that, then you can last a lot longer.
And if you're using your regular sauna, it's always the same temperature. As soon as you go up to a hotter one, you again, it's like the whole nother level of trying to stick it out. I think I told you a story before, Mike, about how I was in Slovenia or wherever it was, and they had a sauna there that went up to about 105 degrees Celsius. I lasted about 5 minutes and I had to get the hell out. I thought I was going to die. It was, you get that prickly sensation all across your body, and it's like, no, I can't do this. I got to get out. And that was ridiculous. And I was used to like 90 degree, 95 degree saunas, and jumping into 105, that was unreal.
I gotta go into your two saunas, because I've had mine up to 90 degrees Celsius, and I can't stay in but about 15, 18 minutes when it's 90 degrees. Brooker has his cranked up to 100 degrees. And he's sitting there. He's like, yeah, 20 minutes is my fucking warm up. Like, what are you, out of your fucking mind? Like, and he has his clients in there, dude. I don't know what you're talking about with like the whole, you kind of get conditioned for it. Every single time I go in there, I feel like I'm in there less and less time. I can't take it anymore. I'm turning into such a pussy.
I always notice if you're in there with somebody else, it's better because you're not focusing on how hot you are, especially if I'm always wiser in a sauna. When I'm having conversations, the hotter it seems to get, the smarter I start becoming. I don't know why it is. I think I'm very economical with my thinking when I'm in a sauna. Suddenly a lot more stuff starts to make sense. It's I do like the sauna conversations. Just because I use a public sauna, I just don't like it when random dudes come in and start fidgeting, or worse, using their iPhones or whatever.
People stark bollock naked back home in saunas. I never used to go sauna.
As you know, we're a prudish bunch, so there's only maybe the odd one or two. And everybody's, there's this sort of wave of awkwardness. You go to the continent and it's completely different. Everyone's naked, but people are still pretty prudish. You're going to have a towel at least. No one's completely naked. Apart from the old guys, they'll do
it. We got the old guys at the local gyms at the LA Fitnesses walking around the locker room naked, like blow drying their balls. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So it's one of the it's one of the things that I do recall is that public saunaing is there for some reason a gaggle of old dudes that'll come in and you're sat there trying to focus, and they'll come in, they'll literally towel themselves off. And they'll stand right in the doorway to do it. So the only light that's coming in the room is shining directly on them, and they're stood there just toweling themselves off completely naked. And you got to look at an ass that looks like two puppies' ears, just hanging there. And it's like it's not a pleasant sensation.
How hot did the spa that we went to get to, the Russian bathhouse in Fairlawn that we go to?
I think that gets to 95.
Dude, and that seems hot as hell. Does yours get that hot? I can't. That thing was, when we were on the top shelf. That's what you said.
100. Yeah.
Oh.
But I'm not quite sure, because the thermometer is like, if you're sitting on the bottom level, it's eye height. So if you go on the top level and you sit up and your head's touching the seat, I think it's got to be a bit warmer. But yeah, it's 100. And it's horrible because you feel like the hairs on your arms and legs are burning. So I would be interested in wearing one of them Russian hats, because I reckon then you can last a lot longer too, because if you can keep the heat off your head.
What, just a wool hat?
You go better. Yeah. Well, you used to have them Russian hats, right? That's what we used to wear when we would go there. Or with towels around the head. I actually stopped wearing it when I go into my sauna, strictly because I'm just trying to burn off all the coronavirus. That's I'm trying to. I'm sitting there. I'm using the motherfucker as a disinfectant. Cool. So what other questions you got, William, man?
Somebody else, there was the sauna one, and then somebody else was asking about a beginner routine for sauna. So that was a slightly more serious question. Like, do you guys have any suggestions for how to, if you've never done sauna before, how do you get going? Like, what do you do?
Honestly, I would go not too high. So something between sort of 60 and 80 degrees. Sit in there for 15 minutes and then see where you're at. Get out. I wouldn't even do heavy contrast work first, because sometimes that can make people feel a bit strange if they're not used to it.
Yeah, hell no.
Let them cool back down naturally. And then if they want to go for another round, go for another round. And then, it's all... you could leave that as your first session, and then after that you could sort of build up afterwards. But yeah, there's nothing worse than when you take, I've done it a couple of times to mates, thinking, it would be good for them, let's get in there, and it's like the truth barrel, isn't it, that? And then it never turns out that nicely for them. So go nice and slow, I guess. But even 60, it also depends. You've got dry heat or wet heat. So if you're going, steam room at 60, that's fucking brutal. It's burning all your nose. It feels like your lungs are on fire. So yeah, I don't know. I would go easy and then build it up. I definitely wouldn't jump straight into it. And they're always nicer if you've showered first, and you're going in a bit wet rather than, bone dry, or at least I find anyway.
What about you, Will?
I find, usually when I get people introduced, it's 2 rounds, maybe 10 minutes ish. Sit them at the bottom. Don't, as much as they might want to sit up at the top, stay down at the bottom. I had a hard time getting a lot of the guys I work with into the sauna, because working with so many combat athletes in the past, they see it as basically a hellscape. sauna time is weight cutting time. So trying to teach them that it can be used as a recovery tool. Some of them are bought into it now, but you know, they would literally get itchy feet after 5 minutes and be wanting to leave. And it's like, you know, getting them to bring water in or whatever, or, you know, try and frame it differently. But yeah, it's hard. They don't want to be in there. But yeah, like 2 rounds, 10, 15 minutes is probably enough. You're right. You don't need the contrast. Sometimes that cold contrast will put people off more than the sauna itself, you know. People are surprisingly you know, averse to getting under cold water.
Yeah, dude. That's one thing I fucking despise is the cold water. There's virtually no way of getting me in it, and I have a I have like one of those makeshift ice tubs now. Brooker, I went to like a Walmart and I bought one of those $20 kiddie baths, the kiddie pools.
A paddling pool, yeah.
And I filled it up with ice and water, like from the hose, and I just get in that motherfucker and I dunk the shit out of myself too. Good. That's when but I mean, the cold, hell no. Like if you're first starting off, the last thing you want to do, I think is cold. And then, I mean, any kind of contrast and any kind of extreme heat, because that shit just gets scary. Right. And the first time I did the bathhouse, they had the steam room. I started off with the steam, then I worked my way over to like the aroma sauna, then I worked my way over to the wet sauna, and then from there I did the flat out the 200 and some odd degree sauna, which, I mean, that thing will just steal the life from you. So and try not to adhere to any kind of specific time either, right? The research is what, 178 degrees or 168 degrees for 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off. 20 minutes on has been shown to potentially double your growth hormone levels, right?
I think it was that, and then the heat shock proteins is the other research. I think that's 25 minutes up to 30 minutes total exposure. So you know, you got that asset to it as well, which is the talk of heat shock proteins.
And what temperature is that at?
I believe, sorry, talking in Celsius, I think that's it was either 85 or 90 degrees Celsius on that one. There's a great single page by Rhonda Patrick that basically lists all this stuff from the heat shock proteins to growth hormone effects to you know, it decreasing all-cause mortality and tons of other different stuff.
Yeah. It's amazing. Also, the research that comes out of Finland regarding like Alzheimer's. I'm not sure, you know, prevention, if you can really say it, but the rates of different types of dementia are also massively reduced. So it's really, really interesting, man.
Isn't heart disease reduced as well?
Yeah, seems like a lot of the you know, circulatory issues that might come up seem to be prevented with this stuff, man. Mm-hmm. So, and you got, you know, like you talk about you know, ice baths and cold baths. I mean, those Finnish people, man, they cutting holes in the ice and jumping into, like, you know, proper frozen water. You know, they're not like tiptoeing into a cold shower. They're dropping straight in, you know. So, and they're doing rounds of that, and they've been doing that for a long time. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a big thing. I think part of the reason why I started doing it was heat exposure and depression. There were lots of compelling evidence on that, it helping with depression. I think there were a number of studies where they did pretty modest interventions, and then there were signs that people's depression was even alleviated after that first session. But a lot of the major interventions were about 4 weeks. And they seem to see, you know, pretty significant alleviation of depressive symptoms. I think the major studies were done in women, but it seems to be, which is, you know, the same reason apparently depressed people gravitate towards hot baths for the same reason. It might be something they do almost instinctually, because I know it's something to do with feeling warm, or you know, sometimes the physical can have a profound effect on the mental. It's interesting, that stuff.
That's really interesting. So there was a link between depression and wanting to take warm baths?
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, it was, I believe the link was because a lot of depressed people also suffer from isolation. So I believe the warmth of the bath makes it feel like, you know, you're in an enclosed space, you're warm and you're safe. I think it's a multitude of things. It might be the heat as well, but it seems to be that there's something to that. I remember a psychologist discussing that, and that was rather compelling.
What dog you got, man?
You hear my dog go crazy?
Is that Freya?
That's Freya.
I thought it was William. That was
No,
William.
that's my little rat. Freya, what the hell's going on, Frey? Why are you losing your mind? And her hair's up. She's going crazy. What's going on? Hey, what? Frey, chill out. Holy shit. Holy fuck. Will, do you know anything about Eastern medicine?
Not particularly. No.
Okay.
It's not something I know an awful lot about. Apart from sort of bits and pieces you get with old school martial arts coaches and stuff like that. So, that's kind of the only time I've come across it. And a little bit of philosophy in that with Confucius and stuff like that. But apart from that, not really sort of into that sort of type of thinking. I did live in South Korea for a year, and you do get immersed a little bit in the sort of culture and the different perspectives on that type of stuff. So,
Well, what were you doing in South Korea for a year?
It was literally pretty much after the was it 2007, 2008 banking crisis. Basically, the economy went haywire, didn't it? And there was no real work in the UK, so I worked in South Korea for a year, teaching English. So I'd say for a lot of guys post grads now in the UK, it's kind of a rite of passage. A lot of guys do JEP or they teach English, in a foreign country or something. A lot of guys go to China now, and I went with my then girlfriend, now wife. So it was a crazy experience.
And what were you doing there?
So we worked in an English school, teaching English in what was effectively like how can I put it? It was like an English theme park, but not. It was sort of like everything was set up to be like a quasi-American sort of town/village type place. So they had different learning stations where you could go and learn about different subjects. Like the idea, I think, is like English immersion. And I did that for a year, and it was kind of weird. So they'd have school groups come in, and when we teach them English on specific subjects. Like I did some of the PE and sports stuff with them, so that was good fun. And it was bizarre because you learn so much about how different culture operates and their expectations of a foreigner, and what they expect you to say and do and be. And I think because they're very exposed to Americans, they're not used to British people and our different sensibilities. So that was interesting as well. But I also appeared on local Korean television, which was a trip as well. I only found out 30 minutes beforehand as well that I was going to be on TV. And basically, they saw it as an opportunity to make clowns of us. And basically, the skit was them teaching us Korean words and us then trying to pronounce them back to them, and then them laughing at us because we were getting it horribly wrong. So, I've got it on an old CD somewhere. It does exist, but yeah, that was a weird experience. But it was typical. They'd never tell us until the last minute if something was going to happen. So, literally half an hour before, you guys are going to be on TV, and it's like, what? Oh, thanks for letting us know. So and there's other occasions where we get dropped on stuff last minute, and that just seems to be part of the culture there. Because you're a foreigner, you're the last to know. So that was always a slightly irritating experience from a work standpoint.
So you speak Korean then?
Not really, no. Like I've got bits and pieces because it's nearly 10 years ago now. So lack of use meant that it's pretty much gone now. I should probably knuckle down because I do remember some of the basics, and it's easy to write once you learn the system of writing. It's a very simple language that's built sort of constructing sounds. Every word's made out of 3 sounds, and it's pretty easy to build that stuff. So it's just remembering the honorifics. And that's the thing with the language. So depending on who you're speaking to, based on how old they are. So if they're older than you, you have to speak in an honorific fashion. If they're younger than you can speak to them like slang and other stuff. And that's just, and the way they teach foreigners, they teach us all the honorific language. So you'll be talking to a kid like they're an adult, and the kids find it awfully amusing, because you're speaking to them like they're your granddad. You're using all the honorific language, and they think it's hilarious. So that's something else as well. They're like, well, they teach the foreigners the honorific. They don't have to learn the slang and that stuff. So yeah, just little things like that was sort of what was weird about the whole place.
So what did you start off? Actually, the 2007, 2008. You're 37 years old now. You said.
Yeah.
So I mean, you were what? You were 22 or so?
I was 26.
26.
Yeah, 26 at that time. Yeah, 26.
And what were you doing before that?
Prior to that, I was teaching in a school, doing as part of their sports program, an international school. Did that for a little while. I was unemployed for a little while. Doing sort of personal training, coaching on and off throughout that period. Since I'd left university. So I kind of bounced around the UK a little bit looking for work because the job market was awful at that time. So that was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember there never really used to be that big of a market for like personal training and sports training in UK for a little bit, right? Like that's back in what, 2005, 6, 7, when DeFranco's was really blowing up. We used to get a lot of people from the UK, and they're like, yeah, in Europe, it's just not, sports just aren't as big as they are here in the US. Like there wasn't the opportunity to make as much money. When did you end up opening up your own place then? When do you think the market changed?
I'd say the market changed probably about 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, where it suddenly, and it was also, I think it was the rise of the CrossFit box that changed things. Because people saw that, wait a minute, because in the UK, a lot of people are sort of very reticent to open their own training facilities. Whereas in the US, I guess, real estate's that much cheaper and people are a little bit more entrepreneurial perhaps. Whereas the CrossFit box rose up, S&C with badge teams was already been established for probably another 5 years prior to that, maybe 10 years prior to that. A lot of guys were getting out of working for major teams and then looking at setting up their own facilities as well. So it was kind of the CrossFit box showed that there was a model for a warehouse gym in the UK that worked. Obviously, it doesn't have to be CrossFit, but it showed that model was definitely doable. I've been open 3 years this year. This will be after the end of our third year now. But prior to that, the space was boxing gym and then a CrossFit box prior to that. So I took over the lease, rekitted it, and I was renting space from the previous owners. So I was running my private S&C stuff within those spaces and kind of keeping my head down and trying to ignore the CrossFit as much as possible and just training my guys, and then I made that leap to gym ownership eventually. And got to be honest, part of the inspiration was that old school DeFranco's. I do remember videos of yourself and other guys, and a lot of us in the UK were seeing that stuff and we're very envious because getting a setup like that here at that time, probably mid 2000s was hard. No one had done that, not what that I was aware of, so it's wild how much has changed in the UK, and now a lot of guys are giving it a bash.
Yeah, I mean that's how we met Brooker. Just came over because of the DeFrancos. I mean, and it was so big because guys just had nothing else going on. It was that's wild.
The only places that were up, there were a couple up north. So like Jack Lovett with Spartan Performance, is that correct? Right up north, I think he's in like Newcastle area. He had a pretty cool gym. He's so far away. And then Sean and Zoran, Mike, the guys from Strength and Performance. But that was what? I mean, when did they get older?
That was 10 years ago, I guess.
10 years ago, yeah, something like that. So, but not much.
And there was nothing like located in London or anything like that either, right?
So, if there are decent training facilities in London, they're either involved with some major sports organization, EIS or something like that. If not, they're usually, because again, it seems to be a real estate issue. Space in London is expensive, so your margins for opening a gym like that will have to be high-end boutique gym, which is going to be hundreds and hundreds of pounds per month, and that appeals to a membership that frankly for most UK athletes isn't athletes. So it's going to be high-end, very wealthy clients. So that's why a lot of gyms like that didn't spring up. There's more now, for sure, but that's probably why there weren't a lot back in at that point. Again, it's the real estate in London is ridiculous. It would be like opening a gym in central Manhattan or something, and trying to open a gym there. I should imagine the problem's the same. There's no space, and it's all super, super expensive to lease anywhere,
Bro, I got a buddy who has a gym in the middle of New York, in the middle of Manhattan, and I want to say for something like, I don't know, maybe 5,000 square feet, I think he's paying like 60 or 70 grand a month.
Oh,
yeah. Yep. It's insane, but people do it. I don't know why the fuck anyone would want overhead. I've had multiple people come up to me and ask me to partner with them to expand or to franchise it. And I mean, honest to God, I want no part of that kind of overhead. So I don't blame people for not opening shit up in London. I mean, you have a relatively small place. Mine is like 2,800 square feet. How big is your facility?
So we're about 1,450 square feet. So
that's terrific.
So that's it's small enough that we don't pay too much in rates, which are a big problem here in the UK. If you've got a massive facility, you end up paying very high rates. So we're small enough that our rates aren't excessive, although with everything that's going on, that's not an issue at the moment in the UK. But we're just small enough. The only thing is, I guess, it's probably the nature of the athletes, the type of athletes I work with. I don't have much space to run anyone, but the type of athletes I work with don't need that type of work. So it's not been a problem yet. But if we move to a bigger space, I definitely want space to run people indoors, like at the moment, the size works. We're very smart with our floor space. We're very economical with the way we've got the place set out, which means that when we do reopen very soon, it's going to make distancing people pretty easy because we are limited on capacity. But the way we've set our gym up means that it's easy to distance people sort of away from each other as well.
Yeah. My first gym was like, I don't know, 1,000 square feet. And then we grew to 1,500 like pretty quickly. And bro, I'll be honest with you, that's all you need. You really don't need much more than that. I had like a little square and then like a running lane that was like 30, maybe 30 yards long total. Right. And it was enough to do sprints, some starts and stuff. But nowadays they have that true form. So if you want to do any top speed work, you just buy a true form for what, $5,000 or whatever the hell it is, like the curved treadmill type things. And then buy a tread sled even then. So you end up spending like 12 grand on, and you end up getting lower overhead, and you can still do speed work and acceleration work with guys too. I mean, it's fucking cake. You don't need space anymore. It's overrated. Guys are nuts doing it. But I don't know. I'm a coward. I don't want any kind of, I've seen so many gyms I've seen so many businesses get crushed by overhead. I want no part of that. Yeah. Big overhead terrifies me.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think they go mad, especially if they've got the finance, and they'll go too big, spend too much money, get a lot of stuff out on lease, a lot of expensive equipment. They'll try and start with all the bells and whistles, and you've just got to be careful in that type of situation. I'm seeing a lot of guys crash and burn within 3 years or 2.5 years because they've gone all in. I remember when we first opened 3 years ago, it was sparse, and that was fine. And what we've actually found is that recently, because of what's been happening, we've actually cut down on some of the stuff we've got in the gym. So we got rid of superfluous stuff, that we felt that maybe wasn't really needed. And now we've got a few new items as well. We just got a flywheel, which was a bit of an investment for us. So we're pretty looking forward to making use of that once we reopen. And we've spent some money to accommodate to our weightlifting, and powerlifting's really taken off in the UK. Raw powerlifting is massive now. So we've gotten, we've recently got a bunch of gear to accommodate raw powerlifting as well. So comp, IPF plates and things like that to accommodate for those guys. We could run a powerlifting meet at my gym if we wanted, a small one, but we could run one.
Yeah, dude, those powerlifting plates are expensive as shit. Was that end up costing you a pound, like $5 a pound or something like that? I shouldn't even say a pound, per kilo, right?
per kilo, yeah. So it is about that. It is about that for the steel Alicos that we have. So they cost us a fair amount of money. We got the Rogue ones as well, but the Alico have been good to us. They've helped us with a few things with the gym, and I think they appreciate the custom. I think they've changed as a company. They used to be pretty prickly and kind of weird to deal with. But now I think they've appreciated that they're slow to market, but they've realized that, the boutique gym is a good market for them. We've got one of their IPF bars, we've got one of their XF bars that I was trying out the other day, and they're all really, really good stuff, because at the end of the day, they see guys like, again, Faster and Rogue chasing them, and someone in some cases making stuff that's nearly sort of kind of comparable. So they've got to do something to react to that shift in the market, because like Rogue are getting behind so many different tournaments and events, and they're starting to take up the space that Alico once used to occupy.
So William, you were saying that the guys you're training, you don't need to run them too much.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that you started with the PGA Europe. So most of the guys you're working with now, golfers? Or?
Yeah, so I've shifted more towards golf in terms of population of athletes I work with. Golfers and fighters seem to be the two category of athlete I work with. And the golfers don't really need to do a lot in terms of any sort of running work. So that's not a problem with them. We maintain sort of base aerobic fitness, but apart from that, it's not a huge issue for those guys. And the fighters, I don't really run them anyway. I'm not big on running fighters unless they really insist upon doing it themselves. So, but I would get a true form or something if it was really warranted. Only recently we started working with a rugby team this past year, and only at that point have I now started considering our options in terms of where to go in terms of stuff for their running workouts. But they do a lot of that stuff on the pitch anyway. I'm not so involved in that, but they come and do their gym sessions with us. And only now am I thinking I might need some space to run them or something like that.
Do you have any outdoor space by you? I mean, it doesn't really get all that cold over there.
No, but we've got a car.
Pisses down all the time.
It just rains all the time and it's horrible. No, we've got a car park, but England and the UK, being England and the UK, it's a massive health and safety liability. My public liability insurance only covers me inside the gym. The other people on the estate might complain if I have guys running around outside. It's an issue. So people here are finicky about stuff like that. So I try and avoid having guys running outside. Because back when it was a CrossFit box, the owner of the gym used to take people out into the car park, and they had complaints, and the landlord got involved and all this stuff. So I'm reticent to have people run around in the car park. It's a thing, but it's like, I can't be bothered with that at all.
Bunch of fucking wieners. Ruin everything. That's why I'm so happy that I'm kind of like tucked away. I don't have to deal with anything. I had some dude. I was walking my dog today, the little rat that you heard barking. I'm walking my dog, and there's no one in the industrial complex where my gym is. There's no one there. People and typically no one ever walks there either. But since we're everyone's on lockdown, everyone's on a fucking walk. So I'm walking my dog all over the industrial complex. And it's huge. It's probably like, I don't know, a square mile, the entire industrial complex. Tons of lawns. This old man comes up next to me, and I don't have a leash on the dog. She's good off leash, and there's no one there. There's no cars there because there's no businesses open. Guy comes up to me, goes, "Hey, excuse me, you gotta keep the dog on a leash." I was like, "Yo, fuck you, buddy. Go on the other side of the fucking road, you loser. You gotta be kidding me." Nothing but wieners everywhere. People are such wieners. They just want to complain for the sake of complaining. And I have a little fucking 20-pound dog. It's a fucking rat. Like, it's not going to hurt anyone. You gotta be kidding me. I hate everyone. I'm juiced. Dude, I'm fucking juiced today. I'm so juiced. So what other questions did you get, by the way? Let's go through all these questions and see where they take us.
Yeah, sure. We one which actually relates to what we were talking about earlier is, how did you go from being the asshole to being so zen? He
ain't all that zen, man. Like, if you actually spend time with him, he ain't all that chilled out.
after hearing this shit, yeah, that was a great follow-up. So it was really interesting. Whenever I take caffeine, I am off the wall. I get fucking juiced. So I used to be a caffeine junkie. I would pre-workout, shit. I would take 2-3 scoops of pre-workout, just shotgun it to the face, start doing fucking anything, box jumps, you name it. And I'd start talking a lot. I wouldn't shut up. And I'm not a total idiot, so I can think of like quick things to say. So I was hyper as fuck. Someone said something to me I didn't like, and I just shoved a whole bunch of shit in their mouth as fast as I could, I guess. So I kind of became the asshole that way. And I wasn't afraid. I wasn't backing down from anyone. I just, I was just a fucking kid that was jacked and tan and kind of good looking, and I was fucking strong as shit. So I didn't want to take shit from anyone. But I mean, you grow up, right? College kid, you grow up a little bit. And I don't know, you kind of get kicked down a little bit here and there, and you learn to be a little bit more humble in life, and that everyone's got shit going on, right? It's, it takes time. My brother was my biggest project when I was younger. It was coming off my divorce. I needed something. I couldn't get back on my feet. I was struggling real hard. I was depressed. I lost a ton of weight. I got down to like 175, all the way from like 215. I was depressed as fuck. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I mean, that's Brooker. I was crying on the phone. It was pathetic. It was brutal. I was in such a bad place. But my only real project at the time was my brother and getting him to lose weight. He was 240 pounds. And I remember me, him, and one of my other buddies, we were sitting around the table. I said, all right, you two owe me. I'm like, what do you mean? So I've been training you guys on and off for free for fucking years, and you haven't amounted to anything, and you haven't stuck with anything. So you guys owe me 4 fucking weeks of dedication to see what we could fucking really pull off. So in 4 weeks, my brother lost 20 pounds. And prior to that, I'm a big tough love guy. Like, yo, motherfucker, let's fucking go. Quit being a pussy. Let's fucking go. Right? My brother's not. So my brother, if you get in his face, he shuts down. So I had to change my approach in order to get him to hang around. So instead of being like the real tough guy asshole, like, come on, bro, come on, let's fucking do this. Quit being a pussy. Don't let them win. Right? It was just nothing but encouragement. It was, yo, hey, we got this. Dude, you're doing so well. Even if he sucked, bro, you're doing so well. Holy shit, I can't believe you did that. Dude, you lost 2 pounds? Bro, you only gained a pound? You only gained half a pound? Like, oh my God, dude, I can't believe how good you're doing. It's all positive reinforcement. And then before I knew it, 8 weeks went by. He lost 40 pounds. 12 weeks went by. He lost 60 pounds. In 16 weeks, he lost 70 fucking pounds. Holy shit. Guy killed it, all through positive reinforcement. So between that, and that like changed my ability to communicate, or changed my thought process with communication, because I always thought like, hey, you're a coach, you got to be a hard ass, but you got to relate with the people, right? Like you got to speak their language. You got to speak to their head in order for them to want to listen to you. Otherwise my brother would storm out. He's got emotional shit going on just like the rest of us. And he's got personality shit going on just like the rest of us. And who knows him better than his little fucking brother that can poke the fucking bear the right way? I'd say the right thing and he'd fucking leave the gym, So that was like those 2 events between helping my brother lose his weight and my divorce. And then those things opened up huge doors with how I coach people and how I conduct myself. I had Jimmy Gardner. The kid listens to this podcast religiously, so him getting a shout out on this, he's gonna fucking love it. And Jimmy Gardner recently came back to train with me. He's an old school guy that I had from DeFranco's. He came back. He started listening to me talk to these kids. He goes, "When did you get nice?" And the kids are like, "This is nice." He used to be meaner than this. He's like, "Dude, I used to abuse Gardner," and I would wonder thinking about how I used to be, wonder how I maintained clients. But I mean, a certain personality loved me, but now my client base is much bigger. So I need to speak to a lot more personalities. So yeah, I guess, I don't know. I grew up. Brooker, what do you think?
Yeah, I think life just happened for you, man. You went through a lot of shit, but I don't know, man. You're always learning, bro. You're always learning. You can still be a prick when you want to be, and you can be the nicest guy in the world when you want to be, and that's it. So I think I don't know. I think the divorce was the big one for you.
Yeah.
that fucking, you know, you went down, and then as you come up as a completely new man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, being a guy that, I mean, I haven't had much failure in my life, right? Like the failure in my life, like I had surgery when I was younger, had to relearn how to be athletic, but I still was more athletic than most people. I was getting scholarships out of high school. I ended up getting cut from a college team. That was my real adversity, right? So like, and then other than having like some girlfriends here and there that were like disloyal or whatever, I never really had any true adversity in my life, right? Like I got cut, then ended up having to transfer schools, and I ended up becoming like an All-American, which is cool and all, but like, I don't know, it's not real adversity. Like the real adversity that I had to overcome was definitely the divorce, a failed marriage. That fucking sucks. That'll change you, especially if you want to improve on it. You know, like people like us, like all we want to do is get better at everything that we do. If we suck at something, that drives us crazy, especially if we want to be good at it, right? Like the last thing you want to suck at is, I don't know, relating to another human, I guess, right? So had no choice but to get better.
Yeah, and sometimes it's good that you can point back to those transformative experiences, you know, where you think, well, that's the point where I either had to, you kind of given an option of either trying to change and get better, or carrying on down that same path that you were on, you know, whatever the behavior it might be, you know, that led to that point. And it's good that you can pinpoint a few cases where it's like, I think this is when I changed. I think this is when I changed. It gives you something to reflect on. I definitely, I posted something recently on my feed, which is talking about, you know, being an introvert and learning the lessons of how to be an extrovert, one painful mistake at a time. I'm naturally a pretty shy person. I hate doing podcasts. So, you know, it's funny that I'm here, but the thing is, if I keep doing them, eventually I'll get better at them. I won't lose my train of thought. I'll try and stay focused, you know, stuff like that. And I don't know if it's a lack of verbal skills or whatever it may be, but I keep doing them. So, and I keep taking the opportunity when it arises, because hopefully you get better and better at them. And a big thing for me was, you know, I've been pretty honest about my experience with depression in the past. And a big change from that was being better at speaking my mind, because I think if you're an introvert, your inclination is to avoid difficult situations, because you don't feel that you'll be able to say what you want or get your message across, and so on and so forth. And then after that, it was like, fuck it, I got to speak my mind and get more of what I want out of situations, as opposed to just letting people push me around. And I think it's part of the reason why that depressive experience happened, because there was a few things that happened in terms of work-life balance and stuff that I felt like I wasn't in control of what was going on anymore. And that kind of threw me for a loop. And, you know, after that, it was like, well, one way to fix that is to better communicate and better speak to people. And you know, I guess part of the good thing about having a gym that has a lot of general pop come in and out is that you have to learn to talk to people all the time, constantly. And you've got to put on a show, but at the same time, you know, at the end of the day, they're the most important people in the room, and you've got to make them feel like that. And that's sort of part of the art of learning to communicate better in that way. And yeah, being an introvert, every time it's hard, but you learn and you get better at it. You don't get any, I guess, you know, you're no less afraid of speaking to people, but you are braver, you know. So yeah, like last year I did a big public speaking gig in front of loads of people way smarter than myself. I think they were like orthopedic surgeons and London doctors and for high-end sport and stuff. And I stood up and had to speak to them, and it was like I was shitting myself beforehand. I was like, I don't know these people. I don't want to talk to them. And then later that same year, I spoke at another event. I did it without any slides, you know, no slides, no backup, just all not ad-libbed, but I kind of had an idea of what I was going to say. But that was a massive thing as well, because I'm one of those people that was guilty of really leaning on whatever materials I brought to do speaking with, you know. And the fact that I then did that was like, well, this is fucking brilliant. You know, if I can speak for a subject about a subject for an hour that I'm pretty confident talking about with no materials needed to back up anything I'm saying, that's, you know, fucking amazing. You know, it's just moments like that where you're like, fucking hell, I've come a long, long way from the way things used to be.
And that's what it's all about, man. On the infinite game, progressing every day, little by little. And also, you're doing real good on a podcast. You wouldn't have guessed that you'd be nervous. So you're doing fucking awesome. And one thing you said, which I thought is actually one of the little secrets, when you said about all these people that come through the door, they're the one that you need to focus on, and they're the most important. that's actually one of the best ways to get out of yourself. Because if you keep looking out and you focus on everything that's going outside of you, you can't look in. You know, you only have a fixed amount of attention span. So one of the things before public speaking is when people get really nervous, everything gets tight, right? Due to this sort of sympathetic response, but also the eyes. So how many people do you see when they're really nervous, they just stare at what they're doing? What the eyes naturally want to do is they want to scan around and look. And just that, and keep looking out, you'll naturally drop down anyway. So there's something really big in that. If focusing on what's going on outside of you, then you can't be looking in.
No, I agree. And I think, I don't know, what happened was modeling other people as well. I used to watch a lot of Jordan Peterson videos, and something he said was that he would focus on an individual in the room, speak a sentence to them, shift focus somewhere else, find somebody else, speak directly to them. And rather than this just morass of people in front of you, because what happens then is it loses the personal touch. Whereas if you focus on one person and keep making that shift, I guess it's a lot easier to do. And that helped me an awful lot, you know, things like that. And that guy, you know, he was public speaking at that time, probably more than anyone else around.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like his stuff a lot. He does. He's got some great stuff. You read his book 12 Rules for Life?
Yeah. I've actually got a signed copy.
Do you really?
Yeah. I went to one of the tour. I think it was the first one he did when he came to London, and he did a talk there, talking about some of the rules and 12 Rules for Life, and yeah, it was a whole event, and yeah, got a signed copy. So that was really cool. You know, just to hit sad hearing what he's going through at the moment, having health issues and stuff. But you know, he's had a massive impact on my coaching approach. I've kind of integrated that into what I do. The big one being being precise in your speech, and that doesn't just mean like trying to be accurate. That means saying what you know to be true and being kind of true to yourself, and that's a big thing, you know. And I think I've injected that into some of my work, some of the articles I've written. I've mentioned him occasionally, you know, and I found that you know, sometimes you get these weird sort of external influences that affect your coaching in a way that you would never imagined, you know, because you can read all the sports science textbooks and papers and whatnot you want, but I found what's been really impactful in my approach is stuff coming from, you know, philosophy, social sciences, psychology, stuff like that. It's probably had a massive impact in my application, you know?
Oh yeah. And going even more into that, Will, what's some of the things that you're doing with your guys right now, which might not be completely scientifically backed up, but your intuition is sort of telling you that they're pretty good? What are you doing?
Yeah, so there's the big thing that I've really latched onto, and you guys talk about this a lot anyway, is to do with the whole breathing element of establishing parasympathetic tone. Big use of nasal breathing. Big proponent of that. Do a lot of mouth taped work, and even using that in novel situations. Like, so I'll get guys mouth taped in sauna, focus on nasal breathing, stuff like that. And big proponent of that, and you know, using that with fighters and other athletes. The golf it's not so important, and I guess when it comes to golf, because the way the strength and conditioning landscape is there, pretty much every other thing I seem to do seems to upset somebody, because golf is I guess it's tacking way behind a lot of other sports in terms of implementation of conventional strength and conditioning. So I'm doing a good job of upsetting people, which is good. I must be doing something right in that regard. But toying with things at the periphery, you know, conventional heavy strength training in golf is an absolute novelty. Nobody does it to any real, let's say, they don't take it far enough, in my opinion. They don't push their guys far enough. And I've got a few guys now who are, their strength numbers you'd be happy to see in a contact sport, let's say. And these guys are achieving club head speeds of like 135, 140 miles per hour, which is phenomenal. It's almost like long drive. And treating them like power athletes is again, it's such a novelty. And then once you've gotten to that level where they're super strong, Then I've started applying novel strategies like using overspeed swinging, stuff like this in golf, which is, again, sort of novelty. And then doing like things like velocity drop off swinging. So going out, doing some swinging the club as hard as you damn can, and then tracking the speed and then stopping once you hit a threshold, and then going and doing your regular practice. And there aren't many people training the golf swing like that, like it's a power event, apart from the guys who are doing long drive. Because for the longest time, these guys are all very sort of technically focused and very focused on the technical aspects of the sport. It's almost like, what's the phrase? If you're going to have a horse, you've got to build a stable. And these guys were just focusing on the horse, you know, and that's kind of the way it was in golf for a long time. But now the narrative is changing, things are changing, and the sport's moving in a different direction.
So for the overspeed training, does that mean you're doing underweight training, like a lighter club?
Yeah. So I've used overspeed sort of accelerated work before. I was using it as part of contrast complexes, French contrast, doing a lot of the banded jumping. I latched onto that, I don't know, pretty early on, and everyone thought I was mad for getting these guys doing banded assisted jumps. Now it's, you know, way more common, but this was when sort of Cal Dietz first released his book, I guess, and basically applying that same contrast training type thinking. And what I'll have them do now is what we call second generation contrast. We'll have them do some heavy lifting, some sort of plyometric, and then we'll get them do an overspeed sport specific movement. In golf, that's brilliant because we'll get them squat, we'll get them jump, and then we'll get them do a speed swing with a lightened club that's normal, that's way lighter than a normal club, and we'll have them hitting speeds of like 140 plus. 150 in some instances, which is, you know, normally with a driver, if you're swinging at 125 miles per hour, that is fast for most tour professionals. So if you're getting these guys building their capacity to swing it way faster than that, when it comes to smoothing shots, they'll be able to hit 125, you know, 130 with very little effort. And we'll use it sparingly because that high speed element of the golf swing, it's something that dulls pretty quick if you try and overdo it. So we'll use that type of work with them, and we'll do light and swinging. But for the most golfers are still at a point where they need to focus on the very much general strength training. Most of them aren't at that point. It's just that I've pushed a few guys now for about 5-6 years where their strength levels are great, and then I feel like confident that I can push them into these somewhat novel strategies. I don't put too much online because I know it will get seen, and it's not that I'm worried it will get criticized, but it probably get misinterpreted, and people will start going mad for speed swinging and stuff like that. So I'm sort of careful about what I put out.
Well, not to mention, it's your fucking shit. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I mean, I'm all for, like, I get giving away information. I give away tons of information. I didn't create anything on my own, but at the same time, like, why the hell am I going to give exactly what I do to the guy down the street? And chances are they're not going to, they can know the what, they don't necessarily know the why, which is the most important thing. But fuck, I don't even want to give them the what. Fuck these guys. Like, my reputation will take care of it, you know? So it'll get people in the door. I don't need to explain things. I've had tons of people tell me I'd have way more followers if I went more in depth with stuff. And I don't know. I just can't be bothered.
No, it's true. People kind of want you to spoon feed it to them, I guess, you know, and occasionally you get a message from someone who's trying to piece things together, and it's like, well, you can buy my program, or you can pay for some consultancy time, whatever you feel you need. But they want you to spoon feed it to them, and it's kind of flattering and irritating all at once.
Yeah.
But it's weird with that. But golf it's funny because it's still a sport where a lot of the bad stuff we were joking about 10 years ago still persists to an enormous degree. You know, a lot of instability training. There was a video very recently of a guy doing some kneeling med ball curls that got passed around the golf world a lot. But then there are guys at the top of their game like Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau. I saw a picture of Bryson DeChambeau shirtless the other day, and he looks like an absolute tank. You know, and this guy's swinging at 140 plus. And he's got the longest driving average on tour right now. And people are still questioning why, simple things like why get bigger, why get stronger for golf. You know, it's like this weird disconnect. But I think, you probably remember the long hitting era or the big hitting era in baseball, right?
Everyone was jacked.
I think the golf is at the cusp of its big hitting period loads of golfers are now going to get jacked and going to get very, very strong because it gives returns. And we've got numbers showing that the guys that hit at the longest distance make the most prize money. And,
really?
And, you know, well, where the money goes, that's where everyone's going to follow, right?
Sure.
So, speaking of unconventional things, you and I go back and forth every now and then, and we'll talk about diet.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned something along the lines of carnivore diet at one point.
I did mention I've not done carnivore diet myself. I've got to be clear on this, but I do think that being carnivore-ish, let's put it that way, doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing. And because we're still in, I don't know, the way in the UK, it's still thinking a lot about, high fat foods, high protein. It can't be good for you. You know, still having carbohydrates as the basis of the way people consume their calories. It's still very much sort of a common type of thinking. But with this explosion in like carnivore diet, and I've known people who've done it and been successful, and it's always surprised me because there's still that voice in the back of your head that says you need a lot of fruits and veggies and stuff like that. And let's put it this way, carnivore-ish means that basically, I guess it's more like carb cycling, right? So, you know, you wake up, you have only protein, only fat for breakfast. You then do your training, and I find that mental acuity is usually better. You go train, or if you've got something to do, a project to do it while you're carb fasted would be the best way to put it. Then once you've done your training, you replenish glycogen, and then you go carnivore the rest of the day, you know, and that was kind of the approach I've been taking. And I found it's worked pretty well for me, but obviously N equals 1. So who knows if it will work for anyone else, you know. I'm probably the biggest and the leanest I've been. And at 37, that's not bad, you know. So, it seems to be working well for me. But again, it's subjective.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your sources of carbs post-workout?
Usually it'll be something sugary initially. So very, very simple sugar. And then it'll be sort of something starchy post that. So potatoes, something along those lines. My wife's Irish, so we can never not have potatoes at some point during the day. So it'll be something like that, and that's generally how I structure that. And usually there'll be some sort of fruit or vegetables with that, but it's just kind of limiting to carb intakes really to maybe only once or twice a day, and that seems to have worked pretty well for me. But I used to be in that previous camp of carbs and protein 5-6 times a day, and I tell you what, I was probably in worse shape then than I am now.
Now, when you're eating your regular meals, are you still having like vegetables with your meals, or even no veggies in other meals?
Even no veggies with other meals. So if you want, I can talk you through a typical day. So it's,
let's hear it.
Yeah. So for instance, steak and eggs for breakfast every morning, pretty much. And I got a question recently on Twitter. I don't know if you saw that one. It was like, how can you afford steak for breakfast every day? And I'm like, yeah, well, you know that large vanilla latte and the pan of raisin you have for breakfast, that costs about the same as a steak. So, and nobody's having any fancy coffee at the moment because all the coffee shops are shut. So anyway, there's usually steak and eggs for breakfast. We usually do some sort of training, and after that it will be it's something usually high leucine protein source. So usually a protein shake whey, something like that, usually with a simple sugar. And then maybe another source of protein, and that'll be with a starchy carb. So that's usually steak or chicken or something like that. And then later in the day, it might be something like something you like, which is cartoucherie. It'll be something like that, or usually something like that. And then it's usually quite often a high-fat cottage cheese, so very low carb content. Something along those lines, or just some more lean or fatty protein at the end of the day. So chorizo is another thing I quite like, stuff like that, although I'm pretty sure it's quite a lot of sodium in that, so it's probably not great for me. But that's another narrative I'm not entirely convinced by that much anymore, is the whole sodium thing.
Me
so
too.
So that's pretty much a typical day,
So 2 questions. One, what time do you stop eating dinner?
Well, you mean sort of
what time's your last meal?
Usually maybe 2 hours before I go to sleep.
Okay.
Because I found that eating with the high fat, high protein foods, I found that eating very close to sleep was giving me gastric reflux.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting a heartburn, and I've tried to cut that back now. I find that if I don't eat so close to going to sleep, I don't get heartburn. But that might be just a personal issue. I don't know.
So one suggestion for you: make it 4 to 6 hours before bed.
Oh, there you go. Well,
if you make it 4 to 6 hours before bed, it's significantly better on your sleep. I've noticed it with tracking with the Oura Ring. I've noticed that big time. Resting heart rate goes down almost 10%. And that's because digestion isn't, and it's the average resting heart rate that goes down, not even the peak. Another question for you. Why the simple carbs post-workout?
I guess, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel very flat afterwards. And I guess there's something in me that craves sugar. So I think it's just that sweet tooth element to it. Apart from just doing it based on sort of intuition, I've got no other good reason for doing that. You know, if someone were to suggest to me, hey, don't do that, you know, I wouldn't do it. You know, but I could probably just go for a protein shake or something along those lines.
So my thought process is this. The only time I ever, and not to criticize what you're doing, I'm literally just telling you how I'm thinking. The only reason you would want instant glycogen replenishment from simple sugars, right, would be if you have a double session. Otherwise, you don't need the instant. You don't need to worry about having the back-to-back workouts or replenishing like as quick as you can. 2, I do believe that the presence of insulin blunts the secretion of growth hormone, right? So if you want an insulin bump, shit, just eat sugar. You could have insulin whenever you want. Growth hormone secretion happens twice, post-stress, right? And in deep sleep. Those are the only 2 times you ever get it. So in my mind, it's like, well, fuck, I want to keep this growth hormone running as long as I possibly can. So how am I going to prevent that while still getting the recovery that I need from the food? So it's like, maybe what I do is I'll eat more of, I'll eat a meal before I work out, higher protein meal before I work out, even though that might fuck with my workout. At least I'll have something post workout to deal with. I don't know. It's these are just the things that like go on in my fucking head when it comes to that. But other than the need for instant recovery, I post workout carbs. Yeah, I haven't done them or recommended them to people for years, except when I have like combine guys that we do a running session in the morning. All right, load up on sugar. If we have no like gummy bears or like Rice Krispies or something, I'll even have them crack open a fucking soda and just chug that. I really couldn't care less. Sugar. For the most part, I don't want all the sugar Nazis getting all crazy on me. But yeah,
I tell you what, it might be a habitual thing, because normally I'd lift, and I'd then later that same day probably do a jiu-jitsu session. So that's probably where it comes from. Right now, obviously, jiu-jitsu is off the table, so I'm just still maintaining that same nutrition habit, just without thinking.
Well, in which case,
it could also be a behavioral. It's like it's your positive reward for your training. It might also be linked with that. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very. I'd say so. Yeah, that sounds exactly like what I'm probably doing. It's just that you I guess you internalize it, don't you? And you do it almost without thinking. You know, it becomes habit.
That's the good and the bad things with habits, how they're habitual. You know, yeah, cool.
So give us another question that you have. How many more questions you guys got left over there?
I've got one more, but I don't know. It's one of these weird framed ones that I don't like answering, which is, if you had an hour, you know, how would you structure your session? But that's kind of I always, questions like that are always like, well, there's so many what ifs, you know, that you know, I don't like questions like that. So you know, it's a bit of a pain. So it's up to you if you want to answer that one.
Brooker, go into how you do your sessions.
I would first, if it was the first time meeting someone, I would just chuck them in the sauna and let's get talking. Let's figure out what's going on. That's what I would do. Cut straight to no fucking around with nothing else. Let's just start talking and let's find out what's going on. That'd be it. That'd be the best way to spend time, I think, together. Actually, sorry to dive. Mike, you want to answer this, or William? If you guys don't, because I've got another question for you, William. So feel free to answer if you want.
I can answer that one from a what I do on tour standpoint, because quite often, you know, if this is the first time I'm meeting them, you got to remember there are 152 players on the European Tour, slightly less on the Challenge Tour, and the way the service works is that any one of those players can book a session to come see me. So a majority of them, I don't know any of them, you know, and because I'm not a super golf fan, I'm actually guilty of not knowing who some of the top golfers are. So the first time I meet them is the first time generally I'll ever talk to them. They don't know me, I don't know them, but I've got to have a productive first session. And those guys are so used to being screened and everything being so golf focused. When you start throwing them questions about their lifestyle, about their habits, you know, just about themselves, they're thrown for a loop, and they quite like it, because I think it's novel to them to be asked these types of questions, because everything's so focused on the performance element of the golf swing in and of itself. You know, you guys probably know that TPI, FMS type stuff is very popular in the golf world, and that's probably one of the first things a lot of golf fitness coaches throw at them, is they'll do that with them first, you know. And I've said to them, you know, you talk to them, you know, get them to walk you through their typical type of training, and get them to help build a picture so you can better help them. But sometimes they come in and they'll want to train, they'll want to do a session, which is a problem because you don't know them, you don't know what they're physically capable of. So you've got to kind of prize out of them what it is they want to achieve, what do you want to do, you know. So I've had guys come in, you know, these guys are millionaire golfers, come in, they don't know me, they're like, I just want to move around, do something. So you got to very much take a bottom-up approach to dealing with that situation, and just sort of try and prize a little bit from them, you know, say, well, do you want to try this, do you want to try this, you know, and sort of see where they're at. And occasionally, and I don't like doing it, you have to come up with something kind of there and then, you know, and it for them to be something they'll buy into. So hopefully they'll book another session with you the next time you're out on tour, you know, because again, some of them are so training averse that you don't want to do anything that scares them away, you know. But at the same time, you want them to see the reality you're trying to bring them, which is that you need to start doing some sort of robust strength training, because that'll benefit you in the long term. And this is, you try and maybe you make the argument from the whole prize money perspective, and you have to try and get this sort of done, you know, in that hour long, whatever it is, sort of time slot you've got. And a couple of times it's bombed. I've probably not done as good a job as I could, where the athlete's been completely turned off by what I'm saying. And then other times it's like where they've clicked and they're like, do you want to come to lunch with me? I want to carry on talking about this. Can we do another session the next day? This is really, really good, you know. So you trying to hopefully have more hits than you do misses. And yeah, I know this, who asked this question is probably I'm not answering their question, but it's, you know, it's definitely something people need to consider, you know, when you're meeting the athlete for the first time, like, what the hell are you going to do?
Yeah. If I'm meeting someone for the first time, I mean, first my eval with them, it depends, right? Because I have two types of evals. I have one that's like the formal evaluation where I put them through all different ranges. I have the static, I have the moving, right? We do the moving first and we go static afterwards. And it's part of almost like, it's part of a comfortability thing, right? It's a sales pitch essentially, where I'm getting them to know I'll use a lot of big words. I'll identify a lot of things and tell them literally, hey, there's a lot of things that we can fix that I've identified, and there's a lot of things that I've identified that we can't fix. But the point is, I'm explaining you all these things so you're comfortable with me, that you know I know what I'm doing. I'm not just some fucking meathead, right? So building the rapport is a very, very big aspect of that first session, especially if you want repeat. It's just like you were talking about. Repeat customers in what we do. I mean, that's everything. Like I've never hung a jersey of a guy that I've coached one session. You know what I mean? Like that's so many people like, oh, walk in, take a picture. Like I refuse. I won't do it. Even if guys only train with me for like, you know, an off season, it's tough for me to hang up their jersey. I feel quirky about that. I feel some kind of way because it's we haven't trained the complete year together, so you're not like a real member of the gym, so to speak, right? I didn't build you. Like I shouldn't brand you like that. And then once we get that and we start building the rapport, then literally I'll put them through the warm-up. And my warm-up is so fucking inclusive that it takes 40 to 60 minutes on day one alone. And they're usually so damn beat up from it that they're sore as hell, and we need to cut it there anyway. And it's not like a kick the shit out of you type of warm-up. It's basic GPP stuff. It's prehab, rehab, it's stretching, but it's stuff that they haven't done before. But if it's someone that I've had for a while and I only have an hour with them, well, I know what's wrong with them, right? I know their main issues. So first and foremost, we have a conversation and we talk about how they're feeling, if that's a part of the session, unless we know going into it. We talk about how they're feeling, what we need to work on, how the season's going, that sort of thing. And then, we address any pain first and foremost. First and foremost, we figure out a way to handle any and all pain if this is an in-season thing. Even if it's not an in-season thing. If someone's hurting, we address that. Whether it's, hey, go through the warm-up, and then if it still hurts, let's try to address it. But that's like first and foremost, right off the gate once we start the session. And who gives a shit? Right? Like once they feel good, get them feeling a little bit better, and then, whatever the hell you have on the schedule for the day, you want to do upper body, you want to do lower body, you want to do some posterior chain, unilateral, who gives a fuck? Right? Like there's so many things that depend, that those types of things depend on. Let's get them feeling good. The most important thing, get them feeling good, get them trusting you, and get them feeling good. That's the most important thing I think we can do with these guys. Brooker, what was your question that you were going to say to Will?
So how much in terms of like longitudinal work are you doing with these guys? I mean, are you seeing them often? I mean, how much, do they sort of just come in to see you when they're on a competition and then you don't see them again? I mean, I'm sure it all depending on the person, but how does this work kind of go?
So because there's only a team of 4 of us, and we're working across 3 tours. So basically what we do is we try and traffic light the players. So we have a system in which we identify the ones that will probably benefit and want to be involved in like intensive intervention. So we will see them every time we're out on tour, and the team rotates, and we'll see them every time we're out on tour. We'll be in regular contact with them, days, multiple days, multiple weeks, end on end, and we stay in touch with them because obviously they're traveling around all over the place. They're not always coming to the tournaments with us. And then we'll have a group below that, and then a subgroup below that who will see, the minimum intervention. They'll come in, they maybe want a couple exercises for something, or they want to talk about maybe just changing something in their program, and then we'll send them we'll give them a program to do, and they'll check in after a month, and so on. So they're the low maintenance guys. So we try and categorize them. What do they need? How intensive does the intervention need to be? Are they buying into it as well? There's no point going to do a ton of work with someone, writing a really great program, putting a ton of effort into it, and suddenly they check out. And if they're a bit of a flake or whatever you want to say, because you do get guys like that who they come in, they're super willing, and they put on a good face, and then when it comes to actually following things through, it isn't there. There's something lacking, or perhaps and it's a little bit like that, or their coach doesn't agree with what you're doing, and you've got to balance a lot of things all at once, which is a problem with that. So we basically try and compartmentalize them. We have what we call our regulars, basically, who'll come see us very, very regularly. They'll stay in touch, and then some of them will work with us via correspondence. And then they're the other guys that come in, they just want a bit of advice. They just want to chat, and we have to basically stratify based on that. And because it's first come, first serve, some players miss out. So they didn't book in with us soon enough, and they'll have to come see us next time. So it's because of the way that the tour operates and the system operates. We have limited capacity. That's a good thing, because it means in the future hopefully we can expand. But the service is new. It's only about 2 years old, and it's something the PGA Tour doesn't offer. So and we're learning as we're doing this, what works, what doesn't work, what tests we should do, what tests we shouldn't do, all that type of stuff. So we try and identify players based on sort of a needs basis, and then whether it's a fit as well.
Mm. I mean, since you've been exposed to so many different players, what's some of the more unique or funny or quirky sort of training or routines you've heard, like, and especially some of the better guys, like not so much the lower hanging fruit, like what are the top dogs? What some of the weird stuff are they doing?
Yeah, so PRI has made its way into golf to some extent. So people sitting on the floor blowing up balloons, has been one of the more entertaining situations we've come across. Some of the private coaches will do things like that, and what you'll see. The weird thing about that is what you'll see is they'll see them crunching up and doing the balloon breathing to obviously work on that sort of posterior expansion, diaphragmatic breath. And then the next moment, you'll see them stood up doing squats, like super overextended. Everything's like, so it's almost stability training, physio style instability tools, sort of divorced from that context and used in a performance application, which obviously doesn't make any sense. So things like Bosu balls, dyna discs, doing single leg work, even replicating a golf swing, stood on one leg, stood on a dyna disc is stuff I've seen before. I once had a senior tour player. These guys are like the 55-plus-year-olds. Tell me that it was suggested that he didn't tell me who, but it was suggested to him that he's swinging an iron bar to help him with his swing, and he was like, "I've got this iron bar in the back of my trunk, and I get it out and swing it before I go play." And the same breath, he's telling me that his back hurts. So it's sort of stuff like that. And there are a few other instances as well, like guys, finding excuses to avoid lifting heavy weights, or doing conventional barbell work. Basically, there's a lot of excuses flying around with that. There's lots of misconceptions. The typical stuff of it being bad for your back, bad for your knees, bad for your wrists. The whole bulking up, slowing down your swing. That type of talk is not uncommon. And as a group, these guys are easily sold to, unfortunately, and because they're quite peer-led. If one guy goes with a certain trainer, other guys will suddenly be interested in going with that particular trainer. So there's a real sort of weird dynamic with a lot of the private trainers out on tour, and some of them sort of corner a niche in terms of ways of doing things. And unfortunately, it breaks my heart when I see these viral videos of golfers doing daft exercises, doing the rounds, because it means that, someone's been caught doing something silly and it's caught fire. And now it's like, well, I've got a lot of work to do. I'll get my guys messaging me going, what the hell's this? What's this guy doing? Some of them take great delight in sending me videos of some of the super stuff their peers are doing, but then it's like every time you see someone like, let's say Brooks Koepka, who's known for being a strong golfer, I'll get a video of him doing bench press or squat or something. You'll take a look at it, and underneath it will be nothing but negativity. This guy, it's going to ruin his swing. He's going to hurt his back. So what the guys at the very top of golf are doing and what the massive majority of recreational guys are doing are so different from one another. It's because golf's weird. It's the only sport where, let's say I go down to a basketball court, I'm never going to be able to dunk, so I don't worry about it. But in golf, they'll go out, and if someone's hitting 300-yard drive, as a recreational player, that's something I aspire to be able to do. There is a possibility I could do it, but it's a weird thing that golf is one of these sports, because pro-ams are still a thing. So as a recreational amateur golfer, you can still go play around with professionals potentially, and whether you hang with them or not is neither here nor there. But it's a weird in that the recreational game feels that the professional game shouldn't be too far away in terms of capability, but they're drifting so far apart. And there's like a broad base of recreational players that criticize anything that means these top guys are getting more distance. It's so weird. It's like an odd form of cognitive dissonance. And all you'll get, you take a look at, for instance, a great British player, Beef, Andrew Johnston, and a video of him was put up on the European Tour page maybe a month ago, and underneath it was just this wall of criticism of why is he lifting, why is he training, why is he working out. And if you were to you see some of the videos of like American football players and other athletes doing weights, and it's all sort of usually there's criticism, but there's a lot of people geeing them up, whereas in golf it's just nothing but negative.
Well,
it's a funny sport you're in, man. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
to be fair on that, I had a video of Kevin Love hip thrusting 500 for, I don't know how many he hit it for, like 10 or so, something like that. And it got posted. It went viral. It got posted on, did it get posted on ESPN, House of Athletes or some shit like that? I don't know. A whole bunch of websites, a whole bunch of Instagram pages posted it, and it got millions of views. And you wouldn't believe how many people shit on that video. Wouldn't believe how many people shit on it. Like, and it's him, like, but it was like a 500-pound hip thrust for 10, which is really not that fucking impressive. You know what I mean? Like, there are chicks that are doing that, right? It's not that much fucking stress on your back. It's really not a big deal. And people hated on it. So, like, I don't know. It's in golf. It's in the NBA too. It's in, and all the stupid shit is in the NBA as well. The cancer is fucking everywhere. That shit's systemic, bro. It is the stupidity cancer. That train is rolling everywhere.
I guess the problem is golf. There are guys who are considered like the very top of the tree in terms of like the private coaching they give the golfers, and the stuff you see them doing. It's like head in hands. You know, it does happen. I guess it happens in other sports too, but it's just in golf. It does feel very acute. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I'm just embedded in the sport now, so I'm very vigilant for that type of stuff. But you know, for a long time, the narrative was you know, any sort of conventional resistance training is bad. You know, everything needs to be kind of geared towards improving the swing. You know, but now we're changing. That tune's changing. Even some of the big players are starting to make the right noises, starting to change their tune. So, because all the evidence is stacking up against them.
Well, think about it. I'll tell you exactly why. Okay? Think about the people that traditionally played golf. Fucking wieners. The same dude, that same pussy that yelled at me today about having my dog off leash on my fucking property. Those are the same fucking wieners that traditionally played golf. So of course they don't want to work out. They'd rather stand on a fucking Bosu ball. That's why. You know, that's how it is.
There's a lot of money in golf. There's also a lot of money. So that's going to draw a lot of people into it. I mean, I'm sure in tennis too, guys that work solely in tennis, I'm sure they'd see some crazy shit as well. Maybe not to the same extreme, but I'm sure there's still some mad stuff there. I mean, look at, you know, our football or soccer for you, Mike. I mean, there's some god awful stuff going on there that you can easily find online. So where there's money, there's a lot of mad people going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So even baseball traditionally, before the steroid era, and even during it, people were saying, don't lift weights. Don't lift weights. I had scouts coming up to me right when Barry Bonds was hitting, I don't know, like 60 home runs a year, like averaging that. Scouts came up to me like, hey, you don't want to get too big, and you want to make sure you're doing stuff that keeps you flexible and this and that. Dude, have you ever seen Barry Bonds' workout routine? It was like 5 sets of 10 lat raises, 5 sets of 10 incline press, 5 sets of 10 this. Like, it was old school bodybuilding for an athlete that was an absolute fucking savage that did a lot of steroids. Like, and he just got better at baseball. So maybe we're overthinking some of this shit with all the fancy mumbo jumbo that we're doing. Like, it's not that fucking tough. And
yeah,
you know, it's not the exercise. You're just not that good of an athlete. Like, it could just be that, you know, like, but people don't want to hear that. People, I mean, how did I get Devin McCourty fucking fast? Well, I didn't. How did I keep him fast? I stayed out of his fucking way, and I kept him healthy. Like, that's essentially what I did. I made him feel good. That's all. I don't know. Maybe I'm oversimplifying shit.
No, but I'm with you. I mean, you know, that's why these guys also can exist. I mean, if you've got one client and you make them feel really good and they're convinced in you that you're helping them out, and even if everybody else thinks they look like a prat doing something, and they're playing good, I mean, dude, at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? Literally. Yep. Who cares? If they're winning tournaments and earning more money, I mean, okay, the argument is, could they still be doing better? But, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, it's a hard one if you start digging into that a little bit, because it's really about the narrative that's going on through the athlete, how they're feeling before they go out. And, you know, the rabbit hole continues and continues after that, you know?
Yeah. So Will, do you travel with the PGA Tour? How does that work?
So what'll happen is I'll travel out to specific events, sort of spread out throughout the year, and I don't travel with the tour per se. The full-time sort of comp tournament staff will do that, and some of the physios are pretty much out 30 weeks of the year. The S&C team aren't out quite as much. So usually once every sort of 6 weeks, sometimes every 4 weeks if it's busier, I'll travel out, and it's a pretty tight turnaround, particularly if I'm going, say, to Dubai or Oman. We'll fly out the Monday. I'll get there, work 2 days, and then fly back either the one of the evenings or the next morning. So I'm probably only away really 4 days, which running a private facility actually works pretty well. Occasionally, if we're somewhere cool that I'd not like to be pushed back a day or something like that, which is a great perk of the job, is depending on where I am. If I'm some pretty neat European location, I'll be like, look, can I get an extra day before I have to catch them down? I'll explore a city somewhere or something like that. So that aspect's pretty cool that I get to do that. But yeah, the turnaround's pretty tight. Like, so let's say you'll get there on Monday evening, you'll be up early, you'll work all Tuesday, you work all Wednesday, and you'll fly home that Wednesday night or that next morning. And then, it'll be another however many weeks till the next event, unless it's in the UK where they're quite often much closer together, because obviously because I'm based there, it's easy to get about.
So you fly there and you stay on your own dime?
No. So the it's all, because I'm a contractor. So the tour pay all my expenses, and then when I come, then they refund me. So I pay for it, and then they refund me all my expenses. It's pretty, it works out pretty well. Like, obviously there are limits. You can't go crazy, but some places are worse than others. So I went to Switzerland last year, and I think I went somewhere for I think it was in Geneva. I went somewhere for like a coffee and a burger, and it cost me like nearly £30, and this was at like lunchtime. So so it was like unreal. Like, Dubai's expensive as well. So like we talked about, golf is an expensive sport. The places they go are expensive. So you end up out of pocket occasionally. But I will say this. Going to Geneva and Dubai, great places to get cigars for very, very cheap. So that's always a good benefit.
That's what we should have done. I should have smoked fucking cigars during this podcast, bro. Once we get an official, like if the podcast grows and we get like an official studio and we start having people out here, we're absolutely fucking smoking cigars the whole damn time.
That's a good idea. It's actually, here's a question for you. When did you start? Like, what was the initial trigger? Because people ask me this question.
So I don't know what it was. Cigars were always appealing to me. Always appealing. And when I was 17 years old, I started smoking cigars. But nothing regularly. I used to go to we used to go to the late night after like going out all night or something like that. We'd finish all our nights at this diner, the Horizon Diner. And back then you used to be able to smoke in restaurants. Like, they had smoking sections, but it was 1 o'clock in the morning at that time. And I'd make my order. I'd have, 5 eggs over easy, 2-3 orders of white toast with butter, an order of mozzarella cheese fries, and like a huge vanilla milkshake. I'd pound it down. I'd finish it off with a fucking cigar. How you doing? Right? Like, that was, but so they let me smoke cigars in there, and I'd do it maybe once a week or so, something like that. And they weren't even great cigars. We started off like with flavored cigars, like the strawberry flavored cigars and shit, right? Like, but we thought we were fucking G as hell. And then it was never anything consistent, but it started then. And then once, geez, Brooker, I was smoking cigars before you came, right? Or
I think a little bit, but that's when we got into it big, if I remember correctly.
I was going to say, do you smoke as well? The odd cigar, Brooker, as well, or?
Yeah. Sometimes, especially if I'm around him, seems to always be going there. So, but listen, Will. Also, before I forget, next time you're in Geneva or you're ever in Swiss, hit me up.
Sure.
I'm not far from Geneva, so we can definitely smoke a cigar then. But no, I think you know, talking about cigars. Remember when we was at Bretty Big Times when he started crying? You remember when we smoked them massive long cigars? Do you remember? Do you remember what was it? What party was that?
I think it was someone's like graduation party or some shit like that. Or no, maybe it was James Gregory's like house party.
James
right?
Gregory's. Yeah.
My old college roommate had a house party, and then I don't even remember the cigar we smoked there, but I do remember one time. Didn't we smoke a cigar at Porterhouse one time, and then didn't Goods like puke in the fucking in the parking lot?
Yeah.
So my brother has this issue where whatever's in front of him, he'll either eat it or he'll drink it. So one thing that we do, we'll have a cider and a cigar, and we'll casually drink it. My brother just gulps them. He can't, like, right here, and just fucking chins it. But he doesn't do it as a competition. It's like compulsive. It's like that's the reason why that's why he got fat. It's if there's something in front of him, if he's not doing anything, he's like, oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, I'm hungry. He'll drink 2 gallons of water and not fucking think twice about it. It's really weird. So one time we were smoking cigars at the Porterhouse and drinking ciders, and I don't even know how many Joe had, but we were driving somewhere, and I had to make a U-turn, and I make a U-turn. We turn around because I missed it, and we pull right in the parking lot. Joe goes, "Oh, I'm gonna puke. I'm gonna throw up." I said, "Joe,
Mikey."
I'm gonna throw up. You gotta pull over. I'm gonna throw up. Stop being a pussy. You're not gonna throw up, and don't puke in the fucking car either, dude. I kid you not. He opens the door, and every drop of the beer or of the cider that he must have had like 5-6 ciders within an hour. They all just fucking projectile vomited. All in the parking lot of the place we were going to. He gets out. He's like, all right, I'm good.
And cider is awful on its way up as well. Like that's
it stings.
It gets even more fizzy on its way up.
Do you drink cider at all?
Occasionally, I find it too sickly. I find it way too sickly. It's so sweet because obviously being in the part of the UK I'm from, we're you know in Essex, we're close to Suffolk and Norfolk, which is it's sort of big cider country. So you know, it's something I used to drink a lot when I was a younger person because it goes down like water. It's so easy to drink. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's whereas now I'm not much of a drinker at all. People like they say, oh, I see you keep having cigars, and it's like, well, I don't drink, not really. So I'm allowed one vice, I think, you know. Mm-hmm. So and if I do, you know, I've always got a bottle of whiskey in the closet that's staring back at me. So that's always an option if I fancy something. But you know, but yeah, it's like this odd dissonance. Like people are like, I can't believe you smoke cigars. You're supposed to be a paragon of health and fitness, and it's like, but I don't drink. You know, I don't eat anything to excess. Really, you know, give me this one vice and let me have that. You know, and yeah, it's what was worse is I started collecting them really before I started smoking them. I had a humidor, and I just started compulsively buying cigars, and then at some point I was like, well, I was at a friend's wedding, and it sounds so stupid, but I was at a friend's wedding, and he's like, he hands me one, he hands me a Romeo and Julieta, and it was really good, and I'm like, I've got a whole bunch, but I never actually smoked them. This is like the first time, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, it's like I try it, and then finally I start, you know, and now I've got a humidor, and I'm very. I make sure the humidity is kept very precise, and I get them out and check them, make sure they're not moldy or there are any beetles or anything. So, you know, and it's become like a whole thing. And then there's the whole ritual now, like opening it up, taking it out. I've got like a really beautiful lighter that my wife bought me, and you know, sort of cutting it and everything, and just like the whole thing has just become like a sort of a little ritual, and it's quite nice. And then you're, you know, outside in the early evening or whatever, and the sun's going down, and you know, every now and again, just have a cigar, and it's quite nice, you know. Yeah. And there's something to it, you know. I don't know what it is, and you know, mainly sort of smaller ones. I'm not going crazy. You know, I was in an event once in Qatar, and there was one of these sort of player
evenings where they have like sort of outdoor food and stuff like that, and all these sort of high rollers turn up, and the staff, you're invited along, which is nice, you know, so you get to get to sort of look at that type of stuff. And I just remember this, you know, he's in sort of this American guy with sort of flash, very shiny suit, and he pulls out this Lancero that's like maybe, it must be 18 inches long, and he lights it, and I'm like, he's going to be smoking that like all evening. This thing is like, it's the biggest fucking cigar I've ever seen. And I was curious, so I started speaking to him, and I was like, you know, just chatting, and he goes, oh, you know, it's like a Monte Cristo that's X amount years old. And I was like, well, you know, it took him most of the night to smoke it, but I went back home afterwards and look it up. This cigar is like $200 per cigar. I'm like, you know, that's crazy, absolutely crazy. But just looking at that, I was like, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could smoke like, you know, that cigar that big. And I looked up, it was like Lanceros are a thing. So, you know, people will smoke it, you know, absolutely obscene amounts of money in places like that. So.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I, Vicky and I, we went to one of my favorite things to do last year when I was doing more consulting for Kev, just distance consulting and watching his games and stuff. We used to go to a local cigar bar, and she'd smoke a cigar, I'd smoke a cigar, and then I'd watch the games, I'd analyze the footage, I'd give him notes, and then, you know, get back to it and just smoking at the same time. We smoked a $40 Padron, like 1926 or some shit like that. I forget what it was. Great cigar. One of the best cigars I've ever had. Bro, I shit you not. She had to carry me out. It was, dude, it hit me so fucking hard. I was like, oh my God. And I was like leaning on her shoulder. I was nauseous as fuck. I had the fucking spins. I was like, man. And ever since then, I can't smoke big cigars anymore. I've turned in, dude, I'm such a lightweight. So now what I do, if I have a big cigar, I'll literally either cut it in half, smoke half of it, put it, you know, and cut it off, put it back in a little humidor, put it in my humidor, and then a Ziploc humidor, and then smoke it again later. Like I can't smoke that much anymore. It's so weird, especially now that I'm eating so clean. It impacts me so hard. But one of my favorite things to do when I was, I don't know, when I was doing a lot of learning and a lot of thinking and growing and shit, and I learned that the most active particles in the universe also spent the most time at rest, right? Like they were also the most opposite, right? For yin and yang sort of thing. So I would love by myself, go outside, have a fire, smoke a cigar, and have no one there, and just sit there and try to be as still as possible and just smoke it, look at the fire, not even look at my fucking phone, put it on silent, smoke a cigar, chill the fuck out. And I would have some of the best ideas, just trying to think of nothing, right? Like almost meditating while smoking. And it was so great. I got to start doing that more often. But that was one of my favorite things to do. And just sit there and think, be still, smoke the cigar, enjoy yourself. Think of nothing and just chill out. Meantime, nicotine's a stimulant. I'm smoking it at, 10 o'clock at night, trying to fucking go back to bed afterwards. Like, oh yeah, it calms me down. Yeah, that's not fucking science, dickhead.
Yep.
No, I've definitely had the swims where I've gone. I think a mistake as a newbie was trying to smoke them way too fast, and then over time you learn that kind of the art of just like taking your time. An hour, 40 minutes, whatever it is, if you're like smoking a Robusto or something, and just, it is because you have to stop, and because you can't really, it's not like a cigarette, you have to kind of look after it. It's sort of, you get into a sort of a definite meditative state. That's definitely something I think I enjoy about it, whether that's what other people get out of it. I'm not really in it for the nicotine hit, I don't think. I'm not chasing that. I don't feel like I have to do it all the time. But it's definitely something to that practice of near meditative sort of state you achieve. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and just to chill out, and I don't know, like there's like an aura about smoking a cigar too. Like it's, hey, bro, chill the fuck out. I'm smoking my stogie. You know what I mean? Like I can't be bothered. I got this fucking cigar right here, bro. Hey, do your thing.
I think it was, yeah, because in retrospect, they're looking at like MJ smoking cigars all the way through the last dance.
Yo,
massive
awesome.
ones. Massive.
Yeah, dude. So I guarantee cigar sales spiked after all that shit.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I can't believe that guy went nowhere without a cigar. I can't believe how much he was possible. And his lungs were fine. That's the thing. That's what I started worrying about. Like, I'm not worried about lung cancer because you're not inhaling. I'm just worried about the fucking mouth cancer.
Yeah. I think it's, yeah, like, and then I started thinking about it a bit more maybe. And it's like, you see, well, Schwarzenegger always had one, you know, Stallone, you know, and it's like, actually, it's been sort of background presence, I guess, for a while. So maybe it's just having like a low key sort of influencing, making you think about it a little bit differently, you know. So a lot of historical characters as well, you know. I think Churchill was a smoker, wasn't he? You know, so you know, so it's sort of, it's in the psyche somewhere. There's something about a cigar that makes it different to cigarettes. There's definitely sort of something very masculine attached to that, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. It's very like archetypical masculine to smoke a nice cigar. Something about it.
Yeah. And then you got George Carlin saying, yeah, you know, Freud says sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. And then George Carlin says, yeah, and sometimes it's a big brown dick.
And what a great place to wrap that one up, man. I need a boogie.
Okay. Will, it was awesome having you on, man. We got to do this again, bro.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Will, man. Really good.
Nice to meet you too.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right.